Okay, we're recording. We're going to share screen. Okay, excellent. Hello, everyone. We're recording, but we're not haven't really started yet. I'm just curious what'll happen if I do that. Okay, that's an idea. Okay. Yeah, we're going to go with this view, folks. All right. So, good afternoon. It's Wednesday. I rescheduled our class live Zoom session. It's not quite 5:30 yet. I'm going to go ahead, excuse me, go ahead and get started. Hopefully some folks will join me in our class live Zoom session. I did want to hopefully get some students on here as we go through. I can go through a lecture, or hopefully we'll have some interaction and I'll be able to call on you to answer some questions maybe. No pressure whatsoever. I'll help you with it if it's something that you're uncomfortable with or unaware of at this point, and help you learn. That's okay. This is a value-free zone here, as it were. So I do hope to get some students on here to participate, and we will go with that. And let me just see if I can from this. Okay, so I just got participants there, and okay. All right, so once again, we have a lot of information coming at us this week, like we do every week. And this is a chance for us to get together, and I can give a lecture and sort of reinforce some of the things that we're talking about that aren't maybe that clear or don't go that deep in the course room. But I can't possibly give you everything you need to know in this brief class live Zoom session. But we are going to go ahead with it. So I'm going to, rather than just touch on a couple of, or I should say touch on several things and not really go very deep with it, I'm going to pick something and go a little bit deeper than that, but I won't be able to touch on every other thing that is in the course. All right, so on a whim, I guess, or an educated guess maybe, I'm going to go with taking a look at our third lecture, or I'm sorry, our fourth lecture or fourth PowerPoint presentation, which focuses on middle childhood social and emotional development. We have early childhood, social and emotional, early childhood, physical and cognitive, and then middle childhood, physical and cognitive development. But I'm going to choose to go over social and emotional development of middle childhood. So here we're going to get into some theories. The psychoanalytic theory, we've touched on this a little bit in the course room through our discussions, perhaps on even some class lives earlier. The psychoanalytic theory, Freud maintained that children are, hey, who we got here? Hello there. Let's see, I think it's Lori Novak. All I see is Novak. Lori, if you could go ahead and put on your video so we can see you. It's just me right now, but I'm so grateful that you're here. See if we can type a message in here for Lori.
I can hear you.
Oh, terrific, Lori. Thanks. It is Lori, right? All I see there is Novak.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. So if you would like to, go ahead and click on your video share, and I'll be able to see you and talk to you. Makes it a little bit nicer. Or just type in a
That's funny. Usually it just comes up.
Oh, okay. Picture that. Okay. Very good. Let's see what happens. Oh, well, I just got a blank screen. Okay. Well, well, good. Okay, so I'm going to pause the sort of lecture for a second, and once again, thank you for joining me here, Lori. Um, Zoom is a great tool when it works, um,
Right.
and when everyone has a chance to come on. Of course, I understand that people have their lives and everything, and it's hard. Oh, there you are. Hi there. Hard to schedule it in a way that is going to be convenient for everyone, or even some people for that matter. So I have to just kind of go with what we got. So anyway, I'm glad you're on with me here. We will go through a kind of a mini lecture, but I'd like to, as much as you're comfortable with, Lori, hear from you and any questions or concerns you have about the course or anything that you're really liking about the course, whatever have you, and see where we stand at least with where you're at. I'm racking my mind out to think of some of your posts. You have, I believe you referenced, even looking at Piaget's theory, you have some kids. Am I correct about that? Some children?
I'm really cutting out and things are slowing down here for me.
Yeah, it seems, yeah. You have children, Lori?
I do.
Good.
Between my husband and I, we have 7.
Terrific. Wow. What ages?
Anywhere from 34 to 15.
Holy cow, 34. Wow. Good for you. Down to 15. So then you even probably mentioned about grandkids as well. I'm thinking about that now that you say that.
Yeah, we have 9 of those. The oldest one is 7.
Good for you. Congratulations. And taking classes too. So no doubt your life is very busy. So, and you mentioned being able to kind of see some of the things that we're talking about in class, like Piaget's theory, and see how that applies to your family and your kids. Is that right?
Yeah, and it's kind of fun right now having we have 2 sets of twins, so 4 granddaughters that are 2 years old right now, and then 2 more granddaughters who are like 18 months. So they're all really right there and learning everything at the same time, although they're at very different stages, and every one of them has a very different personality.
Yes, and we did talk about personality a little bit. Yeah, and I don't want to say too much in my responses in the discussion questions about the questions that are posed. But typically, the general consensus for personality now is that we are definitely born with a genetic makeup that guides our personality type, if you will. But a lot of it is also determined by environment. And when you look at the extreme examples, you can definitely see that. But hopefully and ideally, most of the time we don't have the extreme examples where some at a very young age you're left in isolation or you're exposed to trauma, could be even war. But you're exposed to little different things like maybe being in a large family or being with an extended family or being an only child or a child with only one other sibling, or and depending on the age of that other sibling as well. So those things definitely do influence a person's behavior type, and so we got the introverts and the extroverts. Those kind of things I think are pretty much genetic, but how we respond to that, whether our introversion almost shines out or extroversion shines in. So it's interesting. You almost have like a little lab there with all the all the kids you have.
Great.
Right. So and especially with the twins, and you have 2 sets of twins.
Yes.
Wow. So then you can really
both of my sons have had a set of granddaughters, and they're like 8 months apart. So
wow. That's fun.
Yeah.
That's terrific. I'm really happy for you. So yeah, you can see, and they're not all everyone does it. It's not like walking up the identical steps. Kids learn not all at the same exact time, but they kind of learn. They do learn in order typically. It's kind of odd if they don't go in this sort of this kind of sequential order, but it's not all gonna be they're not gonna walk at 11 months and start talking at 14 months or whatever. That's just kind of a marker. So
Yeah, definitely. I had actually one of my kids walked at 7 months, and
Oh,
one
wow.
of them was over a year. So
Yeah.
they go along, they get their own rhythm going, and they go from there.
Right, exactly. Yeah, yeah, well, 7 months is, yeah, that's pretty cool. I'm thinking that kid's going to be an athlete.
Well, he's now 30, so
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, so that's very interesting. But again, that those are just the way things go, and there's a lot of different variables with that as well. So, um, anyway, so looking at middle childhood as we kind of go on here to kind of address what we're talking about this week. Freud had his theories, and a lot of folks don't think a lot of Freud. Some people. Oh, hang on a second. I'm sorry. Um, in case you didn't read it in my bio or you forgot or just wasn't impressed by it that much, I'm a professor. I'm at three different colleges, but my main job, if you will, I don't know if I even I'm an educator. One of the things I do, I'm a guidance director at an elementary school. And that's where I'm at right now. I just finished helping them out in the aftercare program, and I came in here, so I'm still at my job. So you probably heard that announcement tonight. We have a big event here. Our Winter Wonderland event is tonight. So, yeah, so it'll be fun. But so I too get a chance to look at kids, obviously from a professional level, and even just having fun with. There's 840 kids here, from as young as 3 up to certainly 11, and then we have a few 12-year-olds who may have been retained along the way, and even occasionally we'll get some kids who are 13 who've been retained twice, which we're trying finally not to do, at least in this district, because it's not a good idea. One retention is not even a good idea. But anyway, so so that was the announcement there. But anyway, so even people in my profession kind of think Freud was a lunatic. Not everyone, but there are some who just say he was out there. In many ways he was. However, before Freud, he had nothing to go on. I mean, virtually nothing to go on. Psychology before Freud came along was Wilhelm Wundt, who you may have heard in your Psych 101. Wilhelm Wundt is how we say in America. And he basically was just measuring reaction time. And then he's the most famous one. And then as far as looking at psychosocial development and those things, Freud really didn't have anybody to build on. So, and having said that, some of the things that he talked about still resonate with professionals now. One of the things that people knock him for is Oedipus and Electra complex, because, his mind, boys wanted to have sex with their mothers and girls wanted to have sex with their fathers. And that really does not leave a good taste in anybody's mouth. I've heard people lecture to say that we do have a natural sexual drive, and naturally it only makes sense when a boy's 4 or 5 years old. There's no one else that he can direct this to. It doesn't mean it's different than if he was a grown man. Same for a girl. So there's something to that too. It really is not a fun thing to think about, but you can kind of see where that comes from. But the other thing is, even his oral stage and anal stage, there is something to that. Obviously, we've made a lot of progress since then, but as off in some ways as Freud was, I don't throw him out myself. That's your humble professor's professional opinion. Yeah, some of his theories are kind of out there and kind of been debunked, but I have a hard time knocking the guy because he really kind of got the ball rolling. And
don't you think it's all kind of a stepping stone? I mean, it had to start somewhere.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And then I'll take a little bit of a side note here. Going into not necessarily, not human growth and development, but before Freud came along, and he wasn't the only one, but he kind of did get it moving. You're right, Lori. The way we treated people with mental illnesses, which mostly was anxiety, we locked them up in an asylum and did terrible things. We tried different experiments, spinning them around, hosing them down with ice cold water. We not you and I, but people in society, sold tickets so that people could come in and actually just watch them and gawk at them. So, Freud, at least changed that, or started the ball rolling to change that. So that's a little bit of an aside, but it is right on the money. But yeah, you're right. You got the ball rolling. Erikson comes along. He has a different way to look at things. It basically, are they industrious or do they have an inferiority? So he called it industry versus inferiority. So, just look at the broad definitions of the words. Are they going to be? I always like to look at it like this. Okay, I've looked at this a long time. So, are they going to be proactive and take initiative in their life, or are they going to be a victim and be acted upon? That's kind of the foundation of what Erikson, I think, would say he based his theories on. And I see this a lot. I like Erikson a lot because I see it with kids and adults too, and, who probably did the same thing as kids. Who there are some who take initiative, and some who don't just sort of like take the news, if you will, or anything, any direction at work, just haphazardly and go ahead and do it. Like, wait a second, that doesn't quite make sense. I'll do it, but I have to understand. I want to make sure that we're really going to do this and why we're going to do it. So that would be a person with, that has industry or has taken a proactive stance and taken an intentional approach to their life and career and things like that, versus someone who, kind of maybe has low self-esteem and just kind of does whatever he or she is told. So, and again, those kids that I see here that take that proactive stance, they have less behavior problems because they don't follow the crowd. They don't act on a whim. They recognize that there's going to be consequences to everything they do, and they want to have good consequences as opposed to negative consequences. This also goes the same way with adults. And one of the things that I see, there's several. One of them is the way people manage their finances. People who are industrious kind of take the Dave Ramsey approach, and they don't just kind of listen to what society says, like finance it, like, they say, wait, let me see if I should buy this, make this major purchase, or if I should not. If I do buy it, should I pay cash for it, save it and pay cash, or should I finance it? Should I get, what kind of interest rate can I possibly get? So, I mean, that's a very kind of specific example to looking at how Erikson approached human development, if you will.
Makes sense.
Okay, let me. Okay, I'm kind of stuck here. Okay, there we go. The social cognitive theory, this has a little bit to do with Bandura, Albert Bandura, kind of borrows from his ideas, I guess I should more likely say, are in line with this. And again, you can see overlap in all these theories. But so the social cognitive theory focuses on rewards and modeling. That's the social part is the modeling. Like you in middle childhood, 8, 10, 12, maybe even 14 years old, or probably a little older than 8. They see how a kid sees how his or her parents interact with the world and how they talk to people out in society, how they talk to the neighbors, how they talk to each other, and see kind of how that gets them. I think the best way to explain this is really to look at a pro-social family, if you will, and a kid watches his mom and dad or her mom and dad interact. Let's say there's a conflict in a restaurant or in a store, and see how they approach trying to resolve that without disparaging the clerk or the waitress or the manager, but asserting that they want to resolve the issue in a way that's favorable to everyone, but they will not be taken advantage of. So those kind of things, when I like to use that proactive or pro-social family to kind of get into this a little bit. One of the things that people knock this theory for, and they have somewhat of a leg to stand on, They think, well, if you keep doing that, then people always have to look for some kind of a reward. Looking at the rewards, not the modeling part of it. Like if if my kid gets good grades in school, I take him out for an ice cream cone. So they'll say, well, yeah, he should get good grades just because he should get good grades. You shouldn't have to sort of pay him for that. And okay, in a way, but we're human beings. And the idea is, and what does actually happen is, eventually the child needs less and less external rewards, less and less ice cream cones or pieces of candy or stickers. They internalize that behavior and start to self-regulate because now they have seen and matured enough, and the brain has actually developed enough to see, okay, I am happier when I make the right choices because I'm the one who actually ultimately benefits. While other people benefit also, I ultimately benefit as well. So I'm not even going to get into these. One of the things I did want to talk about in this lecture, and feel free to jump in and share anything, Lori, or ask a question, is the self-concept. How do people sort of have this metacognition or meta self-concept, I guess, or self-concept of who they are? I'm working with a little girl right now. She's in 5th grade. And it's interesting to see her sort of. You can just kind of watch it. Can't guarantee what's going on in her mind, but it seems to me she was doing fine, no problems whatsoever. But little things bothered mom, and like I don't know why she's doing this, and I don't know why she's saying that. So I watched her, and like a lot of kids in middle school, and this is not a middle school, it's elementary. When she's with one person, she acts a certain way. When she's with another group of people, she acts a different way. So it's almost like she didn't know. And a little bit on the child's background, she never knew her father, knew her stepfather as her father. Her mom never really explained to her, which, I didn't necessarily think was a good idea, especially given the fact that she could clearly see that this man favored her younger brother, who was his own child, and her half-brother, more than her. So it seemed, obviously, why does my daddy love my brother more than me? Once she kind of learned that it was her stepfather, it's still not okay, but at least she understood a little bit. So she's gone through that. But now it's interesting in the last 3 weeks or so to see her kind of come out and start to assert herself and kind of say who she is. This is who I'm going to be, and I'm speaking up for myself, and I'm going to be funny, and I'm going to be a little quirky, and I'm going to get good grades, and I'm going to hang out with these people. So it's kind of like she's coming into herself. So her self-concept is kind of developing. So anyway, any thoughts or questions on anything I've said so far, Lori?
So she didn't realize that he was the stepdad before this? I guess I'm sorry, I missed part of that. My husband came in.
All those husbands. No, you were correct about that. It is that she, at a very young age, her father, stepped out of the picture. Mom met a new man, a nice enough man. She was still a baby. Mom got together with this man. They got married, and then he fathered another child with her. So essentially, as far as she knows, she's got a little brother and she's got a mom and a dad. When she was about 4 or 5 years old, that relationship deteriorated. The mother and father, that relationship deteriorated. And so they would go for visitation. Now he would see her. Dad would have both kids over at his house. But when both kids were there, he clearly favored his own child, which is, understandable. Oh, hang on, I'm sorry. Did you hear that?
Just the beep.
Oh, okay. It's very loud here. I'm not sure if you heard. Okay. So yeah, he
Blended families are very tough, and they are. They're hard on kids, but we all grow with them too, and the kids, I think, can grow through that as well, as long as they have positive influences in their life.
I couldn't agree more. There's no question. I mean, just like a normal, no, that's not a good word even. Just like an intact family,
None of us are normal.
Right, exactly. That can be very functional, or it can be just as dysfunctional as a blended family. A blended family can be very functional or dysfunctional. My wife actually, she's also teaches for CCC, Central Christian, from time to time. Her dissertation is on step families, and how to build quality time together so that it's an intact unit. So no, there's yeah, it's not the matter that they are a blended family. It's how you approach raising the kids. And thankfully, it was about a year or so ago. Mom, had to talk with her daughter to explain to her, which again now, all this time she thought that was her dad. Now this, I mean, that's a big blow for the child too, right? Um,
Absolutely.
but now after a year later, she's at least starting to understand, and she's again building a healthy self-concept, which is I'm very happy to see because he's a sweet kid. The family's like, mom, she knew that, at the time, well, when I sat down and talked to her, she was, oh yeah, that really was not a good idea. But you know what? Recognizing it and taking, almost, most things are fixable. It'd be nice if you did it right the first time through. But if you didn't, if you take the right measures, you can make progress and make things a lot better. So I've learned nothing else. I've learned that. So, yeah. This is interesting in the slide, and it's very valid. I did want to bring it up. Kids' self-esteem. People don't realize, that kids have anxiety. Kids get nervous. We look at our childhood and we have the good memories. It seems like a carefree time with no worries because from an adult's vantage point, yeah, you got no bills, you got, you don't have to keep a job, you have to worry about, where you're going to live and all those kind of things. But, kids have their own worries, who's going to sit with me at lunch, or is Billy going to be my friend, or am I going to get picked to play basketball, or, those things seem like very minor to us, but the feelings are very strong for a child. So as childhood goes on, the fact of the matter is, it's interesting. Their self-esteem tends to decline when they're very young, say before 5. They're sort of building their identity, and typically they think the world revolves around them. So their self-esteem a lot of times is fine, and a lot of times it would make sense. The world kind of revolves around them because every adult, grandma, grandpa, whatever, are just doting over them. And then as they get to school, and not to say they all become depressed or they don't have any self-esteem, but it tends to like, wow, this is getting hard. I have to work hard at school to get good grades. This doesn't come easy, and I don't always get a good grade. So that tends to, be very, a very real statement there. But when they get to adolescence, the self-esteem tends to increase, and sometimes, for the wrong reasons. Sometimes, they think they know everything. Like I oftentimes say, I wish I knew half as much now as I did, as I thought I did when I was 15. So anyway, as you go along, it's almost an inflated self-esteem. And there is a difference between boys and girls. That research is going to continue. I think it's important to point out, even the fact that even have boys and girls up here would be where we're at now from the psychological standpoint. There's the gender neutral folks. They're going to have a little slide in there, a little something in there before too many years. And you may feel one way or the other about that, but from the psychological world and human development world, that's very real. It's happening. We're not going to be able to sort of stop it or move it anywhere. Not that I'm saying we should or shouldn't, but it is something that we're going to have to understand. And I don't have an issue with it per se. I mean, that's another little side thing. I've preached about it at different churches. Have asked me to talk about it. I've talked to families about it. And I won't go into my whole thing. But I'm a Christian man, which means, you know, I'm a sinner and I need Jesus. You know, so I don't think it's the end of the world. Folks that are kind of saying I got boys parts, but I feel like a girl. You know, there's a lot of out there in terms of reprogramming, things like that. People have very strong opinions about it, and that's fine. I've prayed about it, and right now I don't even go there. What I've kind of been given discernment on, if you will, from a Christian standpoint, is, you know, that's not my lane. My lane is to teach acceptance and love. So I'll leave that to the other experts, but there's no doubt about it that we're going to have. It's here right now. So go ahead.
I just say I agree, but I did really enjoy the video last week. I thought he was very good.
Right. Yeah, I think so. I gotta hand it to Central Christian. I've worked with different universities, and this is a small little university out there in Kansas, and I don't find it. I take no credit for that video. Everything, the questions, the exercises, the apply, that's here. That's already here. Some curriculum expert, you know, has done all these for every class I've taught here. But let me tell you what, they're on the mark. You know, that, like you said, that video is a good one. I agree with it. From where he's coming from, and they do a good job with that. So yeah, that's a good point. Good point. I'll just, you know, since human development, one of my big passions and big loves is parenting and parenting styles. Are you familiar with the 4 parenting styles?
Somewhat. I mean, I in Psych 1 and then just reading a little bit here.
Mm-hmm. Right. So, you know, it's the authoritative, the authoritarian, the permissive, and the neglectful. So, the authoritative is the preferred. That is, you know, where there are rules set up and rules are enforced, but the consequences for an infraction are sort of a natural consequence. They're not too little or too much, and they're, like I said, they are administered consistently. Authoritarian is like my way or the highway. They don't really teach the child what the rules are, but if a child breaks a rule, they come down on them like a hammer. You know, there isn't any kind of room for negotiation, or if I say bedtime's 8:30, it's 8:30. Don't even ask me to stay up later or anything like that. Then, you know, which in those two you can kind of live with. Authoritative is the best. Then you get into the permissive, which is there are no rules set up, so there's no way to know if the rule is broken because there's no rules in the first place. You know, the kid goes to bed, for example, you know, whenever they get tired and go to bed, or they fall asleep on the couch watching TV. There isn't any kind of, but to the extreme example, no meal plan. You know, they eat what they find in the fridge, you know, or whatever might be left over. Who can come over to the house, and, you know, what time curfew is. There's nothing there, so you really can't get mad at them because they weren't told the rules. And then the worst of all is that's the neglectful. The worst of all, take that back. That's wait, I got it wrong. My apologies. Let me straighten this out, okay? Let me be very clear. I think I said that one where there's no rules at all, that is the neglectful. I hope I said that. The worst one of all is the permissive. This is where they set up rules, but they don't enforce them. So these are the kids who grow up, and when they get in trouble, they get all mad and upset because, why am I in trouble? Well, because you broke the rule, but I never got in trouble before for breaking rules. So I'm looking at the slide. So that children that have a favorable self-image, you know, they have parents or are raised by parents who are restrictive. Okay, so there's rules, but the parents are involved. Unlike an authoritarian parent who's not involved, just, you know, don't break the rules, otherwise you're gonna, you know, coming down on you like a hammer. So they are involved. You know, they'll listen to the child and they'll explain to them why the consequence was what it was if they broke a rule. If bedtime's 8:30, the child asks to stay up late, they'll say, well, why do you want to stay up late? Maybe we can make an exception to the rule this time. And they're loving. And authoritarian parents, while they might love their children, they just don't seem to show it. They're not what we call, quote unquote, loving. In fact, I'm sure most parents love their kids, but they don't necessarily express it and display it. So I remember, I'll share a quick story. When my kids were very young, I'm a very, I was the fun uncle until I had my kids, Then I realized, oh gosh, I got to put some rules in place here. So I made bedtime 8:30, which seemed fair enough to me. So my son, he's about 8 years old, I guess, and he comes to me, says, "Can I stay up late tonight?" So I'm like, oh gosh, like, just kind of want to say no, and So I said, well, I'm going back and forth, Einstein and this thing like crazy, right? So I'm thinking he's going to want to stay up and watch some kind of movie, or what's it going to be like? So I said, okay, well, I don't know, how late do you want to stay up? He says 15 minutes. So, okay, I'll tell you what, I'll make a deal with you. If you promise to be in bed with the lights out at 8:45, then I'll give you 15 minutes, but this one time. So, that worked out pretty well. So,
I think a lot of times when you give kids those options and actually ask, I think we think it's going to be so much bigger and so much worse per se,
mm-hmm.
or it's like when you ask a child, what do you think your punishment would be? They always think it's going to be so much worse than we would probably have done, or if they want to do something, we think it's worse than what they would do. So.
Right. Give me 1 second, Lori. You're exactly right about that now. Okay. All right. Okay. I'll catch you tomorrow. Thank you. Hey, I'm so sorry. But I was checking on. I'm sorry. Checking on Winter Wonderland out there we're having. What you just said is I think clearly you've raised kids and you got grandkids. I think it's words of wisdom. I really do. There's a great little blog that I follow, and they're short, and it's a psychologist who's done a great job. He's had a little organization, or his company's called Love and Logic. And he would just be over the moon with what you just said, because he says the same things. And a lot of times when there's an infraction, like kind of along the same lines on the other side of the coin, he promotes, like, listen, if you weren't prepared, tell them we'll wait. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to wait. I want you to think about it. Maybe you can come up with an idea too. That buys us time. It really is effective to make the child think more about what he did or she did that was not okay. And then a lot of times, like, they'll come and they'll tell you what, because maybe sometimes you don't know. Gosh, what can I do for this? Like, it's kind of a big deal, but I don't know. And they'll come up and they'll tell you, like, you know what, I think I should probably clean up my neighbor's yard, or whatever the case is. That's a good idea, and then you move on. So I think those are words of wisdom. I really do. Lori, I'm gonna say this, and I say it every week on the recording. If you see it, I think I could, like, parent-child relationships and this stuff. I could talk and talk and talk, and that's not going to be any good for anybody. So I'll touch on a couple more things, but I kind of want to hear from you a little bit in terms of your great experience. And anything that's resonating with you that you want to sort of accentuate, or a question, or anything, or concern with this week's topics, or even last week's topics for that matter.
I don't know of anything right at the moment that I can come up with, but
that's okay.
I'll just keep talking as we go.
No, that's okay. I just want to make sure you have the opportunity. I love to talk to. Sometimes I'm fortunate enough that a church or someone will invite me to talk about family, and I love the parenting and parent-child relationships. My kind of the foundation of everything I do, from education to counseling, which is my counseling is more life coaching, writing curriculum. At the foundation of it for me is relationships. If I'm talking about parenting and setting up rules, it really comes down to relationships. If I'm working with a teacher on classroom management, or a professor, which I don't have as many opportunities to do on in terms of how to run a nice class, it really comes down at the base of it all is relationships. Even sometimes I coach people on giving talks. Not that I'm a terrific orator, I'm not, but people come to me for that too. And pardon me?
I'm sorry. I'm a big proponent on making sure kids are aware of rules, not just rules, but consequences.
Right.
I think I did a lot of, and this might sound really harsh, but like with my daughter went out when she was in high school, she knew that if you are 1 minute late, you lose 1 hour of time for the next time you go out.
Mm-hmm.
And I talk about that before she'd even go out. It's like, now you know what's going to happen, right? And she'd repeat that back to me.
Right.
And I can honestly say she was never late. And now in the working world, where she's 22 years old and she's a surgical tech, she is like a half an hour early at everything she goes to. But I think if you don't let them know ahead of time, this is what your consequences are. So you decide if this is worth losing that. So you make the decision. Do you want to face those consequences, or would you rather come in on time?
Lori, I could actually, if I could, I would do a backflip right now, because that's like music to my ears. And again, I've done a lot of things in my career, and I'm blessed. I've worked with parents a lot, and if I could just, to me, that seems like so obvious. That seems so obvious that you would tell them beforehand. But I can tell you right now, I could probably count on 2 hands, counting you. I'm still on 2 hands of the parents who understand that concept and who actually implement that. To tell the child, yeah, you know, they come and say, I don't know why he's misbehaving. Well, did you tell him what the expectations are? And did you tell him what happens if he doesn't follow those expectations? And, you know, invariably, if they're having problems with the kid, the answer is no. Every single time. When my kids were very small, whenever we would, because I look around, I know I had my kids a little older. I was in my 30s. And again, I was always the fun uncle. Like when my sister's kids, like, hey, I was the guy, hey, let's go fishing. Or stay up late and watch movies, like, which was okay because I was the uncle, right? But when I had my kids, I couldn't do that. So, and I looked around at parents and I saw, like, why is it that when I see parents out in public, from Chuck E. Cheese to the beach or whatever, and the kids won't come, they call the kids to come, they call them 3-4 times. I cannot imagine how a grown person is having to do that. Well, clearly, because in my mind, I'm thinking I would have told them before, when I say come, you need to come, or else this is going to happen. So just to reiterate what you said, when my kids are small, I said, okay, when it's time, I'll give you a 5-minute warning, because I get it. You can't just stop, and that's my job. I'm going to be fair too. So I'll give you a 5-minute warning when it's time to leave the park, let's say, or the beach. But then when I say it's time to go, you must come right away, and you can't have a bad attitude about it, because this is what will happen. If you don't come right away and you don't show respect, then we can't come back. Period. That's it. You know what I mean? So like we used to go to the beach on Sunday morning, and we won't come back next Sunday. So it's like you said right now. I'm so happy to hear you say that. And interesting enough, like, again, now your daughter is never late for work. When now she's an adult, she's 22, and sounds like a very important job that, you know, it wouldn't be very good if she was late for that job, for anyone for that matter. But how important that is, and I see less and less. I call it intentional parenting or proactive parenting. I see less and less of that going on, and you know, I have some kids are just easy to, my kids were, I can't really take credit. God was blessed me mightily. My 2 children, I think anyone could have raised them. They never really gave me 1 minute of grief. I'm so grateful. I mean, I love them to death. Of course, I love them no matter what. But they really, you know, and people say kids are, yeah, they are, but they were good. God gave me good kids. I can also talk about relationships and parenting and things like that, because this, again, everything I just talked about comes back to relationships. um, but again, I just less and less of that I see of parents taking the initiative to explain to their children, you know, what the expectations are and what happens, you know, if you don't. Um, yeah. So anyway, I like I said, I can speak on and on about that.
Well, and invariably they are going to fracture a rule, you know. So,
Sure.
and I think then you just have to, you know, and I guess what I did, I guess I just said, okay, now you did this, you tell me what's going to happen. What are the consequences? Because we've talked about this, and they knew.
Right.
They knew absolutely. There was no question. There was no fussing about it or anything because they knew they made the choice to break the rule.
Right.
So they knew what was going to happen. Although, likewise, I think, of course, my daughter also again, but when she was really little, you know, we're in Walmart and she's screaming. She wants this certain toy or whatever it was. And I had no choice but to stay in Walmart because we lived so far away that I couldn't just go back. So I kept her. She was really fussy, and I told her, "You keep this up, and you are going to have to get a spanking when we get to the car." I mean, and a spanking is one swat on the butt for me because I don't believe in that otherwise. But
Right. Sure.
so she, and that's just me personally. But and she went. I even had a gentleman waiting in line with us offered to buy her this toy. No, this
Right.
is what, you know, that she's making a choice here, you know. So of course we get out to the car and I swatted her once on the butt, and she was sleeping before we were out of the parking lot. She was crabby, but I think then the next time we're in Walmart or anywhere else, she knew
Right.
that what I meant was, and I think there's too often where parents just give in and you do the permissive thing, and
Yeah.
there's no consequences for it, and they know that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and I see evidence of it all the time. You can imagine. And the other thing I mentioned before, Lori, when your daughter would go on the date, you mentioned you made her sort of repeat to you. So there is no ambiguity here. There is no ways I didn't know, I didn't understand.
Nope.
As a teenager, you may not, but for little kids, I think that's even more important. You know, that you understand. You tell me so that I'm sure. Yeah, exactly. And yeah, that you're so right about that. And then she was asleep, and she knew next time. And it's funny, you know, the guy went to offer her,
Yeah.
pretty nice, but no, please
I'll
don't.
buy it for her. It's not the money. It's the principle of the thing.
Absolutely. And yeah, so yeah, I couldn't even boy, I'm grateful for you. Believe me. I hope you share this with many people, because I see it deteriorating a little bit. Listen, do you have any other questions or anything? I mean, I'll stay on here a little while longer, or as long as you want, but you know, I'm happy to speak with you. Are you I don't want to say, are you in Wisconsin?
No, North Dakota.
Oh, I knew it was something like that. I knew it was one of those out there rectangular states, even further west, North Dakota. Is it freezing there?
Actually, today was not too bad. We don't have any snow yet, which is really strange for this time of year.
Right.
And it's been, I should say, nice. It's been in the 30s, which has been really nice right now.
I'm free. It's been very cold for us in Florida. For me, it's been like 46 when I get up in the morning. Of course, at 5 o'clock. But I've been freezing this week. It'll warm up towards Friday and Saturday. But yeah, boy, oh boy, you must have some real winters out there.
Oh yeah, definitely. But no, it's pretty nice so far this year. So
yeah.
Of course, I'm way on the southern side of the state, so that means we have nicer weather than those up north.
I think that's great. You know, I for when I was younger, I never thought about. I could never live out there. You know, and I've been out west, so I know what it is. I don't know if you've been east. You can't. I couldn't explain to anyone, or no one could have explained to me what it was like out west. And I had to experience it to see going on and on and on for miles and miles and miles, and not seeing any kind of you know, gas station or you know, like you said, a Walmart or whatever have you. Here we got them, you know, they're coming out of our ears. So, but now I think, you know what, I kind of wouldn't mind that.
Yeah, no, I have to drive probably an hour and a half before I'll see a Walmart or Target or anything like that where we're at. And although sometimes I think that we get so much more. We don't see the culture that other states will see. You know, if you're here, you're 90% of the population is probably Catholic or Lutheran. 99% of them are white. You know, there's no, I think we were the last state to ever allow the same-sex marriages. And so there's a lot of, you know, nobody gets a divorce, nobody, you know, all that kind of stuff that we're still kind of back there a little bit, but I don't think that's all so bad.
Right. Yeah. Right. I definitely hear you. I mean, yeah, like I think sometimes I wouldn't want that. My wife's from India. And so, you know, that I like the culture. I like the Indian food. I like, you know, I get everything here. I'm in South Florida, so it's a real nice, rich blend of all kinds of food and music, and I like that. What's kind of getting me a little bit though is partly because it's getting more and more crowded, and it's, you know, people are less polite, you know, when it gets crowded. They're in a hurry, and it's, you know, they're not getting what they need to get done, and those kind of things, and losing like the incivility. That's what I kind of hate. I'm originally from Kentucky, so I think back to those days, and, you know, people have like a little bit slower pace.
Yeah,
I definitely like that. So it's, well, you know, we'll see what happens in my retirement years. Not too far off, I guess. So, yeah. So we'll go ahead and end it now, unless you had anything else pressing. But I'm so glad to have someone on here, kind of talk to a little bit and get to know a little bit. And I was very happy to, you know, really, you know, kind of boosted my morale to hear your parenting and things like that, and your wide range of kids as old as 34 down to 15. I think it was, if I got that right. So
yep.
Kids. So I think that's just wonderful. Are you enjoying your experience with Central Christian?
I am. Yeah, I have, yeah, all of the classes really, and I'm minoring in psychology, so, which I didn't really plan to do in the beginning, but I'm really enjoying that part of it.
Good. Well, I love psychology. Psychology is my life. You know, I mean, I teach you know, here and other places. Just finished teaching at Palm Beach Atlantic, which is another Christian university, integrating Christianity and psychology, which is an interesting thing, and marriage and family and all those kind of things. So, what is your major?
Healthcare administration.
Oh, cool.
Because I'm the risk manager at the hospital here.
I think I've probably read that. Yeah, I think that sounds familiar. So, well, the psychology can come in very handy for you. Have you taken social psychology yet?
No.
Okay. If you get a chance to take that, I think it's that comes in very handy in an organizational setting.
Yep, it is on my radar.
Oh, cool.
I think counseling is going to be in my master radar.
Oh, cool. Excellent. I'm very happy to hear that. That's wonderful. All right. Anything else for me?
I think we're good.
Yeah. Can I have a prayer? Can I have a prayer before we go?
Absolutely.
Father in heaven, we just thank you so much for this opportunity to get together and talk to each other from across these many states and time zones. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for Lori. I want to ask a special blessing for her and her family, that you'll watch over them, keep them safe from all harms and dangers. Bless Lori's efforts as she moves forward. I'm sure to walk in the purpose that you have for her. And again, bless her family, that they can support her and get along and come together, as I'm sure they do, and enjoy the life out there that they have, and celebrate her advancing in education and her career. And I pray for all of our other students that couldn't be on here for one reason or another, that you will also bless them in a special way as we all move forward, getting closer to you and fulfilling your purpose in our life. All these things we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Night night.
Good night.